All right. Well, looks like we are live on YouTube. Thank you again, David, and the entire F50 community for inviting me to moderate this awesome panel. I am actually coming to you live from Miami, Florida. I just came in yesterday for something called Art Basel. I don't know if many of you have heard of it, but I'm here for the weekend. I am so excited to be able to at least take a little bit of time out from the craziness going on outside right now in one of our amazing partner co-working spaces called the Lab in Wynwood, which is actually an arts community based in Miami, Florida, where our Founder Institute community is actually run. So I thank our amazing Miami, Florida Founder Institute team for hosting me here today while I get a little bit of work done as we head into the long weekend, and also talk about some of the places that I love the most, which is obviously Austin, Texas, where I'm already homesick, and talking about the ecosystem that has driven that community. So again, excuse the hat. This is my Miami hat. I'm in Miami Threads.
I
But we're
still
going
ask
to
the
talk,
Texas hat. Okay.
yeah, we're talking about Austin today. So thank you all again. So today, looks like we have a pretty cool panel. David, you're going to be joining us too for this conversation. So I think it's without further ado. I think we all know you, Mr. David Cow, but if you want to reintroduce yourself, since we are live streaming on YouTube, please, we'd love to get to know you a little bit more.
So maybe on this part, I just introduce my relationship with Austin, Texas. I visited Austin a couple years ago, and I moved myself to Austin January 6th, one day before Elon Musk becomes the richest person in the world. That's a good joke. Okay. So, and I formally, completely moved myself on May, moved to the ranch, as many of you has been here. So last few months, I was trying to wondering what do I do to really be part of Austin's startup venture ecosystem, since I'm running the largest entrepreneur community in Silicon Valley. Well, Silicon Valley entrepreneur community cannot move to Austin for sure. I still travel back and forth between the two regions. So we talk with Ido, talk with a couple of friends. We decided to create a global event called Founder World. That's the story behind the scene. But one of the things I'm really looking for is to connect the two ecosystems. I do see lots of energies and potentials in Austin slash Texas. I'm really so happy. I'm primarily based in Austin right now. Look forward to, you guys have been here far longer than me. I look forward to work together with you, all of you, and to make Austin a great city.
We're honored you chose Austin to be your new home base. So thank you, Dave, for joining us as well. We also have Lisa Besserman over at EXPA VC. Lisa, long time no see. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I didn't get the memo about wearing the hat, so I'm a bit bummed. I would love to be wearing a matching hat, but happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brought you to the Lone Star State, and specifically Austin, specifically?
Sure. So a bit of a background. I am currently the managing director at EXPA Venture Capital. EXPA, funny, the previous speaker was talking about Uber. EXPA was founded by Garrett Camp, the founder of Uber. And we are a $350 million venture capital fund. We invest anywhere early stage from pre-seed to Series A. All across the board. We're investment agnostic. Yeah, and I run the day-to-day operations, work with the investment committee, work with the founders. So it's quite an awesome, multifaceted role to be able to find the next generation of incredible entrepreneurs, and then not only write the checks and be their financial partners, but also be their strategic partners and get in the weeds with them, work with them. Working with entrepreneurs is very near and dear to my heart. I call myself a recovering entrepreneur turned venture capitalist. So way back when I was a founder myself, I built an organization called Startup Buenos Aires, which was an early stage startup accelerator program. We worked with thousands of founders throughout Latin America, did that for quite a while, was very fortunate to exit. And, at that point, I'd been living in Argentina for about 5 years. I'm originally from New York, and I thought it was time to return back to the States. Didn't want to go to New York because I left New York because of the weather. I don't do well in the cold. And so decided New York wasn't the right place for me. And so I was actually deciding between two cities, one being Austin and the other one, ironically, being Miami, which are like the two cool places to be these days. So I'm a bit ahead of the curve, or I thought I was. And so after about a week in Austin, I decided to just to do a pilot program and spend 1 month in Miami, 1 month in Austin, and see which place made the most sense. And after about a week in Austin, it was very clear that Austin was going to be home. And it's just an incredible place with a really strong and growing tech ecosystem, lots of incredible entrepreneurs. And I also personally love the outdoors and hiking and just being in nature. And so having access to that, to the great hiking trails in Austin is really fantastic. But it's really the people that drew me here. And I guess the barbecue too. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it is always a good excuse to come to Texas. I'm going to turn on that twang every once in a while. We do have one more panelist, Daniel Wiegand, but I'm not sure if he's going to be joining us. David, fantastic hat. I'm glad you're joining the hat party. Do
I remember just now.
Do we know if Daniel's going to be joining us for this fantastic conversation? I think we're good as a trio, but I want to make sure that if Daniel is joining us or not, we can continue on. Hey, David,
Let's move on. I didn't see Daniel, so let's move on.
All right, then we're just going to keep rolling. We're just going to keep rolling then. So the conversation, we don't have too much time, so we're just going to get right into the meat and potatoes, is the booming startup ecosystem that's happening here in Austin, Texas at present. A little background on me. My name is Martinez. Martin, for what my friends call me. It's easier to say for all of you in startup land. I am the executive director for the Founder Institute programs that are hosted in the Lone Star State of Texas. We started in Austin back in 2017. I'm a serial entrepreneur over the course of my career, and I have watched the Austin startup ecosystem evolve over the last 15 years to what we're seeing and learning about and hearing about all over the news every day, seems at this point. So over the course of the last 5 years now, we've been able to grow Founder Institute, not just from a singular chapter in Austin, Texas, but expand it throughout the state of Texas, hosting programs in Houston as well as Dallas, and then soon to be San Antonio come in 2022, really connecting the Texas Triangle to what I know and believe it's going to be powering the economy in Texas and potentially the United States over the next 10 years. So we're going to talk about Austin specifically. So I want to hear from both of you. I have my own opinions, but I want to hear from people that have just come into Austin over the last few years on kind of where you thought it was or where it was starting when you first kind of started planting roots, as well as maybe what's changed during that timeline, and more specifically, kind of where you think this could actually go and change startup ecosystems in general. But Lisa, well, I think we're going to begin with you because you have an extensive experience building ecosystems, seeing it from a global level. You know, you mentioned it just a second ago, just from the quality of life, just the ability to kind of just get outside and immediately go and be outdoors. But, you know, what else is going on in Austin that for maybe people that don't see things on the news that is really compelling right now about the ecosystem versus maybe where it was when you just came a few years ago?
Yeah, so I arrived in Austin about 4 years ago, and it was growing at the time. I would say it's a bit more nascent than it is today. It was certainly growing. There were quite a few centers of gravity. There's, you know, obviously UT is a fantastic school that's bringing a lot of really great talent to Austin. But I think the thing that's changed and evolved most over the past, I'd say, year and a half since COVID is just the mass migration to Texas and to Austin from the coastal areas. And that's the thing I truly appreciate most is this diverse thought, bringing in people from different areas, different regions, making it, you know, less homogenous than it maybe was in the past. I think it's a really great transition that Austin is making. Like it's a wonderful place to live. It's, you know, as I mentioned, like the cost of living is a lot lower. There's great talent pool here. There's great resources for founders. And also another thing that we're seeing is the founders are coming here, but also the venture capitalists. There's a lot of VCs that are moving here and putting money into building out the ecosystem, which I think is really valuable because I think one of the challenges I faced when I first came to Austin is it was a bit homogenous. I think it was the same kind of like Texan all boys club that people had an issue with, and you know the same people receiving the same funding, the same people funding those people. And I know that might be a little controversial to say, but I think one of the really fantastic benefits of this, you know, mass migration to Austin is just diversity. Like there's, more diversity, there's more inclusion, there's more belonging for founders and for funders. And I think that's a really great mix in order to build a very strong and robust ecosystem. You have the talent, you have the founders, and you have the dollars that's going in and betting on these founders. And then mix that with diversity and just great culture. And I think you have the ingredients for a very strong and sustainable startup ecosystem.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I couldn't agree more as well. When I was one of the last startups I worked on about a decade ago, my own, it was very much as you described, that boys club. There just wasn't the support network really too for people who just weren't already initiated into that club, so to speak. So I appreciate you kind of acknowledging that and also noting that we are starting to see that change from a dollar standpoint as well as a founder background standpoint. David, I know you're more recent to the Lone Star estate, but does any of that kind of reflect kind of what you've already seen, at least from just everything you've already started to organize? Because you are a big events guy here in town.
Sure. So at least I already have a wonderful summary about what's going on. Maybe I just highlight 2 areas which I'm looking for. So many people ask, where do people move? I know is for the success of Silicon Valley, naturally people start to extend beyond the Silicon. That's very normal. Of course, there's other controversial reasons I don't want to mention today, but people are moving to many different locations. Startups, particularly established business, are moving everywhere. But the one thing I want to highlight on emphasis what Lisa had said before is where all the venture capitalists are moving to. Actually, Austin becomes pretty much the only one. There are few ones moved to other cities, but most of them moved to Austin. That's number one I want to highlight. Number two, I want to highlight that we call at least I mentioned the diversity. Diversity is related to creativity. But I want to mention another angle of this issue, this opportunity or challenge that we call affordability of startups. Remember, HP, Apple, and many hundreds of very successful startups started where? At garage, in Palo Alto, in Mountain View. Guess what? Today, are you able to start your business in garage? There's no way, because the house in Palo Alto costs several $1 million. A house is very difficult for grassroots entrepreneurs to start their business in Silicon Valley anymore, because it's way too expensive. Expensive to live, to have a garage, expensive to hire people, expensive to have nice food and there. So I think that naturally, Austin is far more friendly from affordability standpoint. It's not about the money, because sometimes, very successful companies do raise lots of money, but also to hire your team members. You want to grow significantly beyond your current team. That startups grow like a couple hundred percent in a year. So where do you hire all the new talent? And there is a challenge. That's why I say that many of my friends also have shared the same view with me, that Austin is a great place to expand and start up a business. So that's why I'm a strong believer in Austin. Of course, I think Silicon Valley still has the number one leader. There's no question on that one. But I think there's many different ways. I think Austin and Silicon Valley can share lots of common innovations.
That's fantastic. And so what I'm gathering just, really some of these key points: accessibility. So it doesn't matter what background or even like from an affordability standpoint, it's the second thing. Accessibility and affordability are something that are really making Austin a hotbed of attractiveness, not only for the founders, but also, at least as you mentioned, the investor piece. And I think this is probably the most critical. This is what's going to turn the knob to another degree, if not more, given we're starting to see more of these investment dollars just dollar for dollar coming into Austin specifically. For both of you, David and Lisa, both of you are, again, invested in this space. What's a little necessarily changed, I guess? We're going to go back to you, Lisa. You talked about, again, that boys club and same kind of deals, same kind of founders. Are you seeing anything in terms of like check size or diversity in terms of the kinds of companies coming out of Austin with respect to the deals that maybe EXPA is working on, or things that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think I think given that we're bringing in more people from the coastal areas and founders that have been historically exposed to more disruptive technologies than Texas is used to, I think previously like Texas was a very like SaaS focused or like ag tech focused, like there wasn't incredibly disruptive startups that were, you know, born and bred here. But I think one of the benefits of what's going on right now is that we're bringing in like these disruptive mentalities. You know, when you're in Silicon Valley, you see people building next generation products that could change the world, and we're bringing in those, you know, those products or those systems or those services, whatever it might be, to Austin. So I think, you know, with this diversity of thought and with these people coming from different ecosystems, it's bringing in more disruptive type technologies in different spaces like crypto or Web3. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity there for Austin to be more innovative in terms of like the types of startups that are founded and scaled here. Another thing that I think I'd like to include is, you know, historically in the past, like you needed to be at the center of gravity in order to receive funding. Like you needed to be in Silicon Valley, you needed to be in Boston, you needed to be in New York. Whereas now, because of COVID, the borders, you know, have come down in terms of states and receiving financing. And I think that's just generally a very positive thing, because now you can be anywhere and people can choose to be in Austin, they can choose to be in Montana, and still have access to that financial capital where historically they couldn't. And the truth is human capital is borderless, and you should have access to, you know, investment capital, regardless of where you set up your operations or regardless where you or your dev team might be. So I think that that's also another trend, is more people are deciding to live where they want to live rather than where they feel they need to live in order to raise the funding.
You're hitting so many points right now. I really love that, what you just said. BC is borderless. I do appreciate that, and it's true. It rings true. David, to piggyback on what Lisa just was talking about, let's talk a little bit more about what kind of your thesis is. You know, you have a particular set of things that you look for when you're investing. Is there anything that's still missing in the Austin ecosystem that could enhance the attractiveness for potential investors, not only put dollars in, but potentially uproot and bring their firms to town?
Okay, sure. So I want to follow up with Lisa's point of this is borderless now. Yes, so because of pandemic last 1.5 years, what we noticed, the big trend is that people start to invest further from their geographic location. So I want to answer your question is where I think Austin can do, maybe Texas can do better, is the angel investment. So I did take a look of the attractions of the numbers of statistics on the earlier stage investment, not VC, but on angel investment. I think Silicon Valley is very extremely active area for earlier stage investor, because there's so many, there's an ocean of they call the qualified angel investors, all the corporate executive from all the big companies, 100,000 angel investors there. So many people get investment from ex-boss, ex-friends, ex-partners, so ex-managers. This is something I really want to see in Texas. I know Texas definitely does have lots of what we call the rich people, all your money, or land money, whatever is it. So we do have, Texas have an ocean of rich people as well. It's just the habit of investing in early stage not there yet. Still, yes, there's several angel. I think we published a most active angel group in Texas earlier this year. There's about, I think 7 to 8 angel groups are pretty active, but not as active as it can be. That is area I think we need to do a little bit more to support, because angel investing is not something you definitely need a mindset, need the environment, need to be able to check out the founders before do. That's one area I'm looking for. On the second angle I'm looking at this is that because of pandemic, investors are looking for beyond their hometown to the angel investor. So maybe that is the angel investors looking from Silicon Valley, from other place to invest in Austin.
Got it. Love it. Love it, David. And I do appreciate you noting too, something I haven't really heard before, but makes obvious sense now that you explained it. These qualified angel investors, these people that are working at big tech companies, they're not putting in money into startups. They're not investing in the way that we think it should. And it seems like it's so common in Silicon Valley that, yeah, there's that ocean of wealth that's ready to be tapped. And it is here. There's tons of really great companies. It seems like, again, every month you hear about a new tech company uprooting from the Bay Area and planting roots into Austin, Texas, specifically, from HP to Oracle, as well as Tesla, the biggest news that's come in recently. But we're not seeing that. So if you're watching this right now, if you're an executive or doing very well at some of these larger tech companies, pay it forward, give it back to the startup community, and you'll see some massive returns moving forward. We are running up on time, so I want to just make sure that we have a couple more things just to touch on. I guess moving forward, what we're doing moving forward for the future, at least of Awesome, maybe the next 5 years down the line, what would you love to see in terms of maybe some of the interesting deals that might be coming, maybe some of these new industries? Like, so you mentioned Web3, crypto. What are some trends that you're noticing that maybe Austin can really take hold of? And is there any like interesting companies that you might be looking at or working with currently that are kind of accelerating those trends?
It's a good question. What I'd like to see is more investment. I think that we just started to crack the surface in terms of like more VCs coming and creating home bases in Austin. And I think with that comes a lot of opportunity. I also find like we haven't really touched upon valuations, but I feel, seeing valuations in the Bay Area, seeing valuations in New York and Boston, I feel like the valuations in Austin and in Texas are a little more reasonable for VCs. And so like when you're looking at like the economics of investing, I think if you're a VC or if you're an investor, looking at Austin is a really great space to look, and you could have, a much larger equity in startups that you believe in, just because they are based in Austin. And I think that they're a little more reasonable in terms of valuation. So like in terms of like the economics of it all, I think it makes sense to be in Austin. In terms of trends, like I see the potential that Austin has to be a tier 1 city. I think, we've been one of the strongest tier 2 cities in the world and in the US. And I think that there's a lot to be said about the talent and the opportunity that we have and the funding and, in terms of like the opportunities that are here and the education that's here and like the dev and tech talent that's here. So I'd say like in the next 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised if Austin positions itself to be a tier 1 startup ecosystem and venture city.
I love that. I hope nobody in the Miami area here is hearing that either. David, same question to you.
Sure. So I think Lisa is a great speaker and has a very good summary. So I'll add a couple of things. I want to look at this one from a sector or vertical standpoint. So of course, there's many different technology companies, for instance, cryptos and couple new technology companies. They're going to spread all over the America, including particular Florida, is very hot in the blockchain technology there as well. I want to say what is unique or what is something different in Texas. I will start with in Texas, everything's big. So what is big is land, spaces. So what are the stuff which need space? So space technology, of course. And you see a couple on the electrical cars. Cars technology company need testing, large space test. That's typically very difficult to do it in Silicon Valley. And also manufacturers, any technology which need larger space for testing our labs. Texas is great place. I hear like military-related technologies. Lots of we call it public security-related technologies need larger space to test. I think a University of Texas, A&M University, has a very large space of innovation for manufacturers and ag tech spaces, and also we call it safety technologies. Is that the right term? So those spaces is very well established around the University of A&M. Well, I think right now is the opportunity to extend that beyond just the College Station areas. That's why I think this is something unique in Texas. Another area I look at Texas, which is very unique, is the property tech. Because the property tech needs lots of new construction. If you don't have construction, how do you develop property tech? The new homes in Texas is like extremely booming this year. That's give you a large play field, lots of different construction technology companies, including the 3D printings, prefab homes. There are a couple of technology companies are growing this space as well. Of course, those areas had been established in Texas. I believe now they are meeting their time to explode in next few years. But if I have hope, our hope is health technology, because health technology is my personal interest as well. I know San Antonio also Texas, UT San Antonio is pretty strong in health tech in the past because the military base there. UT Austin's health school of medical, I think 6 years or 7 years old, still very new, but growing very fast. I think the health tech actually is the area which I also believe Austin has a great opportunity to grow, which I'm looking for possibilities to look into more health tech companies as well. And one of the reasons is that because the regulation and testings, because right now the clinical trials is getting complex every year, and people are looking for different states have different regulations and more friendly to tech innovations. I think that's an area Texas can play some role. Thank you.
Got it. On that note, I think we're out of time. So I appreciate David, Lisa, you joining me for this lively discussion on the booming Austin tech ecosystem. So I hope our audience really appreciated this discussion. I know I did. And if you are looking at kind of putting dollars into companies in the year ahead, Austin and Austin-based companies are a great place to do it. So on that note, I appreciate everybody and your time. David, I'm going to kick it back to you to keep us rolling on this awesome day of conversation. And I think you're going to see me a little bit later this afternoon, if I am not mistaken, as we get into the community leader discussion.
Yes, you are.
So
okay, very good. So
thank
you, Martin and Lisa, for the great content. You two have been here far longer to me, and thanks for the support. Looks like our investor panel got more speakers today. So, but I really appreciate the content. And this is the beginning as I moved to January, this is my personal experience. I moved here like January 6th, and I was wondering what I do. There are different things, different way we can be part of a community, and it takes me a very, very long time to decide the founder word is right thing to do as a community event. We decided to rebrand on October 29th and finish the initial rebranding on November 5 or 6. Keep in mind, it's less than 1 month. So I would say this is a great first year, but I also call it a wonderful proof of concept for the founder world running from Silicon Valley and Austin and online. I really hope you guys can be part of our founder world 2022. We'll be hoping can be significant improve from what we